Hi, my name's Sylvia. I'm a sex and relationship therapist. I spend my days helping clients untangle their emotional, sexual, and relational patterns. I work specifically with couples, thruples, and everything in between, as well as individuals, to navigate their intimacy, identity, and trauma concerns, as well as all the societal expectations that they use as lenses to live their sexual lives. So when I speak on dating culture, toxic femininity, as well as masculinity, this new incel uprising and femcel uprising as well, I might add, it's not just an opinion, it's the lived experience and it's the reality that I witness in sessions daily. Now, I'm not making this video to point any fingers at any specific community whatsoever. It's an invitation to reflect, not just on the systems around us, but also the stories within us too. So back in 2022, I did the psychosexuals on Wizkid's song Love and Money. And in part of his song, he was talking about what he would want to do for his partner. He'd want to spend money on her basically in different ways, one of them being taking her to Mumbai and them things there. And I used that pointer of his mindset potentially to kind of talk about the different mindsets, the very polarized mindsets that I was seeing back in 2022 when it came to dating. It felt and still feels like men are on one side and women are on the other side, each trying to survive but just not connecting. And first and foremost, let me even start off, before I even get into this video fully, I cannot stand, I detest, I hate the fact that we use the terms masculine and feminine, like one belongs to men and the other belongs to women. Softness and strength is not gendered. We all have feminine and masculine energy within us. But for the purpose of this video, I will be using those terms because that's how they seem to be framed in these polarized conversations that I've seen online. If you haven't seen my video, just go back to my last post on TikTok or Instagram and it's there. Have a look, have a watch, have a listen and see what you think. In that video, I spoke about 4 different dating identities that we tend to see a lot of online. Very polarized, very black and white. One mindset was where some men were more than happy to cater to their partner, buy things for their partner and things of that nature. On the other side, I was seeing a lot of men asking, what do you bring to the table? Then there's women who are like, I'm independent, I'm good. I don't need your money like that. I don't need your resources like that. I'm good in that respect. Then you have women that are like, yeah, I do want you to be spending on me. I even expect you to buy my clothes for our first date. So you have different mindsets and it just feels so polarized in the messages that are now kind of being linked to that incel culture and femcel culture on social media. There could be an emotional element that hasn't been considered from the mindset of a man who's happy to cater for their partner. There could be an emotional element of feeling that their worth is through what they can provide. For a man who does want equality, for want of a better word, in terms of what a woman can provide, that could be steeped in wanting there to be some sort of equilibrium in regards to what each other is bringing to the table, which it might sound practical, it might sound logical, you know, sometimes you don't want to do all the work by yourself, but in these conversations that I've been hearing, it feels like it's rooted in the need to control or the fear of being used. Then I spoke about women and what different types of women are looking for in relationships. And I spoke about the quote-unquote independent woman who has her shit together, who's working for herself, who has the things that she needs. She doesn't necessarily need the monetary support from her partner like that. And also the fact that, you know, with that work that she's doing, it is to contribute to the betterment of the household. However, if we were to look at it from another point of view, that could have been something that has been learnt by a woman, that, you know, men cannot be trusted. That could be steeped in hyper independence, and therefore that kind of can also stipulate whether she trusts in a relationship, masking the inability to actually just receive as a woman. Because there's nothing wrong with receiving as a woman. So also, is there nothing wrong with being helped through the labor of your partner's hands for a man either? And that can stop women from receiving emotional intimacy And, you know, those women who are more than happy to have their partners buy whatever the hell they want for them, that could be steeped in wanting generosity from the day dot, from literally the day dot. I mean, that could be wanting stability. That could be wanting provisions. However, on the other side of that, there's an element of entitlement there, expecting access and effort when you're not really doing the same on your end, believing that love must be bought and not rewarded. But on the surface, all of these types of mindsets seem and sound different, but underneath all of them, there's often expressions of fear, self-protection, as well as unmet needs repeating themselves. With me explaining this, I'm not trying to say those mindsets are wrong or right. It depends on where the emotional standpoint based on those mindsets come from. None of these mindsets are random. They're emotional blueprints, rehearsed roles that we've seen, inherited, or survived. Being a sex and relationship therapist, I work with my clients to uncover the things that they might be holding on to from their childhood and things that have created habits, mindsets, themes, and just ways of living, and also defense mechanisms as well as coping mechanisms to just navigate the world that we live in. So all the things I'm talking about do not just appear out of thin air. Sometimes we think we're looking for a partner, but really and truly, we're actually seeking and looking for parents. A redo, a rectification, or a reward that we didn't get when we were younger. It's often shaped by what we've seen when we were growing up, where we choose partners who have similar traits, both positive and negative, to our caregivers. That's where the concept of imago comes from. But if we're not conscious of these patterns, we'll continue to call them standards, or just how men and women are, where really it's trauma and pain in disguise. And until we start to do the work and unpack the difference, healing cannot begin. If a man saw his dad work 3 jobs while his mum stayed at home, he might internalize that his worth is based on what he can do and what he provides. A woman whose dad never showed up financially or emotionally might become hyper independent. A woman who saw her mum showered with gifts by her dad might expect the same patterns in her own relationship. And a boy who saw his mother do it all, go to work, looking after the house, raising the kids, he might grow up admiring a woman's strength, but potentially or maybe also expect women to carry it all too. They might seek out partners who did things like their mother did, or on the flip side, reject emotional responsibility because they were never taught how to meet someone halfway. We unconsciously choose our partners based on these things. It's not necessarily even to relive those dynamics, but they can be to actually master them and fix them. But the problem with doing that is that we start to expect our partners to heal wounds that they weren't responsible for in the first place. Now, talking about patriarchy, and I have to because it's the root of everything we're talking about today. Patriarchy tends to teach men that their value is steeped in dominance, what they can provide, and emotional silence. On the flip side, it teaches women that our power lies within how we look, how emotionally accommodating we can be, as well as being the one that's chosen. So when men tend to feel like they've lost purpose because women have started to thrive on their own, it's not about women. It's about a system that told them that they're only valuable if somebody needs them. And now, because some women don't need them in that way, it's created a community of angry men. But the problem is they're directing their anger at women and not the system that has actually failed them, as well as women. It's important to say that patriarchy doesn't just harm women, it also harms men and their lack of ability to actually express themselves emotionally. It creates roles that leave no space for softness, gentleness, and no room to actually pause and ask as a man, how do I feel? What do I need? Who am I beyond just a provider? And some have just not been given the tools nor the permission to just be able to sit with that. I've got to be honest, some people literally have not done the work and instead have created brands, audiences and careers based on their unresolved traumas. And then unprocessed pain gets defined and dressed up as the truth. But it's basically projection wearing a nice suit or thinking you're high value. And it's not just men. I can't sit here and say it's just an incel culture that I've seen. We're also seeing the rise of femcel culture too, where women feel emotionally or sexually rejected. And so they internalize that rejection in painful ways. Some retreat into hopelessness or hyper-isolation, while others adopt a hypercritical or perfectionist standards that act as a protection from ever being hurt again. And until we start to do the work, healing cannot begin. And these are for all those podcasters who are creating a community of incels and femcels, as well as those negative, toxic, masculine and feminine mindsets. I'm talking to you all. This is the emotional part of the incel culture, where men feel abandoned, rejected and unseen. And instead of doing the inner work, they retreat into blame and resentment. And in some cases, that resentment also turns to rage. We've seen how the incel mindset, if not checked, can escalate to verbal abuse, targeted harassment, and even violence. There was a few reasons why I wanted to do this video, and one of them is also because of the fact that I've watched the series Adolescence, and I don't know if you guys have watched it. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's about a boy who is accused of committing a serious crime against a girl, and basically it goes through the emotional turmoil that is not only within the family that he's from, but also from himself when he's actually talking to his therapist and understanding that that incel mindset had actually started to seep through with what he was saying to her, wanting her to see his value, as well as getting so angry with her. However, whether it's femcel or incel energy, it's all stemming from the same place. Having unprocessed pain, unmet needs, and the belief that connection only comes with suffering, performance, and power. I've also been seeing how people are talking about masculinity being destroyed by feminism, by the LGBTQ community, and by the idea of equality itself. But I just want us to kind of sit down and think about this for a minute. If masculinity is so fragile and it breaks in the presence of others being free, what kind of masculinity is that? Let's just ask ourselves that first and foremost. Also, if we were to take, for an example, a trans man, shall we say, if masculinity is so sacred, then aren't trans men part of that sacredness? Or is masculinity only valid when it comes from people who see themselves as cisgendered and in a heterosexual package? These are all things we should really start to kind of think about. As I said, some people have built entire platforms out of unprocessed trauma, refusing to deal with the deeper wounds because that would mean questioning their masculinity and in some cases their femininity too. Maybe the issue isn't masculinity being lost. Maybe it's that the power is being shared. And for some, that feels like a loss, even when it's actually growth. When we force people into binary boxes, we don't create connections. We create performance, we create pressure, and we create silence. And that silence can lead to violence. What I've noticed as a sex and relationship therapist is that a lot of people are dating with unhealed expectations. Some men are carrying mum wounds as well as women carrying dad wounds, and they're projecting them onto the people that they date. And that's precisely why the real work has to start within. Not on a podcast, not through a business strategy that celebrates your trauma, not in a comment section, but in the quiet, honest moments with yourself. And we also need a lot more people speaking up when they see this mindset being infiltrated into their groups, into the people that they know, within the people that they know, because this has to be something that is reflected through our communities and actually spoken about through our communities. We have a lot of people saying that a man is a simp if he wants to do for his woman, and we also have a lot of people saying that women are just gold diggers and things of that nature. And these are all polarized viewpoints, and they're not reality, but everybody has a platform and they can say whatever they want. And if you're using your trauma to base your understanding of how you should be in a relationship, it's not going to be healthy. And until we stop outsourcing healing, and until we stop making others responsible for the love we never received, we'll keep mistaking control for power, performance for intimacy, and validation for connection. Healing's not going to start from anything but sitting with yourself and asking yourself, what was I taught about love that wasn't true? And the moment we can all start to ask that, you stop repeating the pattern and you start writing something new. Misogyny is a sociological issue, so therefore it needs to be dealt with in a sociological way. So if you have friends, family who have these mindsets, I'm not just talking about toxic masculinity, I'm also talking about toxic femininity as well. And people that have these mindsets need to be held accountable. But I also have been around conversations where women are talking about men are this and men are that. And I always kind of put them in their place and say that not all men are how you're saying it. And for you to have that mindset, you are not only prohibiting yourself from finding the man that you want, but you're tarnishing all men with one brush. If we don't put a stop to this, we're going to continue to create a divide between how women should be, how men should be, the mindsets that come with that, and the cultural, gender-old expectation that we've planted within society. You're not wrong to want to feel loved, protected, seen, acknowledged, validated, all of them things there. But if the way that we seek these things are steeped in fear, power imbalance, or performance, then we are not relating, we are reenacting.